when this film begins, so much I didn't remember about it when it goes 5 years later. I was like, wait, what? I don't remember that. But it's 5 years later after the first Ghostbusters. Was that necessary? Couldn't the movie have just started and then we got the idea that, oh, some time has passed here? Does it need a 5 years later on the front of it?
I don't think so, but it does work, and because everyone is now different.
Well, because, yeah, the first film introduced us to the Ghostbusters, and we know what it is, and then say, boom, the sequel, now they can tell a story because we already got the origin story, I guess.
Yes, and we can start with the gas pedal on, and then we don't have to bother with laborious introductions of, who these people are. Which in the first movie, they're introduced as normal as you can introduce these characters. And that's part of the issue with Ghostbusters 1. They try to make everybody really normal and relatable, and they're these academics, and they just seem like just college academics who are a little mischievous. But in Ghostbusters 2, it's sort of like we start with the world is just completely lopsided. Nobody is normal. Nothing's normal. And these characters can be whoever they want. And I think I like them better in Ghostbusters 2, the way they're set up. Venkman with his TV show, you got Ray with his bookstore, you've got, Egon with his, where is he at? I have this written down here, the Advanced Institute for Theoretical Research.
Yes.
And they're weird from the start.
I did like Bill Murray's strange talk show.
I have a strong psychic belief that the world will end on New Year's Eve.
The funny thing there is he's truly predicting the end of the world, and that's what's going to happen if Vigo gets his way, right?
But now, did the lady who was visited by the alien, was she predicting anything as well?
Where'd you get your date, Elaine?
I received this information from an alien.
Crackpot, yeah.
The World of the Psychic. I love this show. In fact, that should be a movie. When she is talking about meeting the alien at the bar, and he looks to the camera just off to the side, and it is a classic Murray expression that cracks me up, because he knows not only that she's full of it, but he's actually also full of it for hosting this show.
Yeah. And
then he looks at the audience as if to say, and I'm full of it.
Yeah.
Look, no respected psychic will come on the show. They think you're a fraud.
I am a fraud.
But this is what you want, and
I like the bit about hairless cats. Pretty weird, huh?
Weird.
Yeah.
Oh no, and he says, give me Ira.
Next week, though, give me Ira. Hairless pets. Weird.
But we didn't talk about the very opening though, where remember how the movie's trying to establish that New York is a cesspool
of negativity, people nagging each other, honking, yelling at each other, and there's Dana pushing her baby Oscar, just kind of oblivious to it all.
Not a lot of visual flair, and then the baby carriage goes berserk.
And then when she catches up to her baby, we don't really, we're seeing this film for the first time, say we don't know what the plot is. All we know is the buggy, the stroller, it ran through some goo. And she chased it through traffic. She stops, she picks up her baby, and also nothing better at the beginning of a film than a baby in harm's way, right? She picks it up, and then the Ghostbusters theme starts. And it's like, oh, this was paranormal. I gotcha. Okay. Cue up the song, and then it cuts to the Ecto driving through traffic, and you're like, they're on their way to see Dana now. She called them, right? And they even get out of the car, and it's Ray and Winston. They're strapping on the proton packs, and they go inside. But they're there for a birthday party. What's funny is the mom is played by the therapist from Lethal Weapon. Did you notice that? And, of course, the little kid...
Jason.
My dad says you guys are full of crap.
Jason?
Well, some people have trouble believing in the paranormal.
No, he just says you guys are full of crap, and that's why you went out of business.
I mean, Ivan Reitman, give him his due. He knows how to he knows how to make a movie efficiently.
Yeah.
So I never felt like we were sitting with actors who were indulgent. This movie is a very indulgent, but I think it's indulgent in a good way. It's not indulgent with effects, for sure.
Yeah, also, when you read about the making of this film, it sounds like Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd, they wrote the script. It was like they had to please Bill Murray to get this made. Like, Dana and Peter aren't married. They've broken up, and she actually married another guy. She had a baby with him, and now she's divorced. So now she has a baby, but it's not Peter's, kind of a thing. And part of that made me think that they probably wrote it where they were together and they had a baby, but he was probably like, no, Peter's not married. Make it so she's divorced. And it's like, oh, okay, let's make that note in the script. It's just like, why? But okay,
But now you mentioned the backstory, that what happened during the 5 years. Things happened to these people, and none of it is really funny.
Yeah.
But it definitely, things have happened. And I like how Egon puts it to Dana. He says about Peter, he says, he was borderline.
Peter? Well, he was borderline for a while. Then he crossed the border.
Then he crossed the border.
Yes.
So, like, Peter, he's got to have a conversion story. He's got to find out, I can't just be an asshole my whole life.
Yeah, but I don't know if he... Does this film give him a journey? Like, his character is one thing at the beginning and different at the end? Or is he just the same through the whole movie?
No, here's the thing. I think the 5 years later gets at this. I think he's had a journey.
Oh,
he had a journey.
Yeah.
And now he's different. But he doesn't want to lose but he hasn't lost any of his edge or his spontaneity or his his ability to charm.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he is a different person, and there's something subtle going on there. And I think this is another reason why I prefer this movie to Ghostbusters 1, which seemed to me like just a continuation of what he was doing in Stripes, and Meatballs.
Yeah.
Whereas with Ghostbusters 2, he was trying on something new.
Okay, is this a funny line when Egon tells Peter to get a stool sample, and he goes,
Venkman, would you get a stool specimen, please?
Business or personal?
what does that mean?
Some lines in this movie make no sense.
That's why I feel like it was an improv scene, and they were like, yeah, that's pretty funny, I guess. But a line I do like in the movie is when Egon said that they had no toys as he grew up.
You mean you never even had a slinky?
We had part of a slinky, but I straightened it.
I thought that was a funny line.
Yeah. It's a funny image. And later, a joke that made no sense to me, and I really thought about this more than I probably should have, when they're talking about the slime and how it feeds off the vibes of human emotions. And Ray is explaining this and using the analogy. He says,
"You mean this stuff actually feeds on bad vibes?
Like a cop in a donut factory."
Is the joke, because the mood slime is responding to human emotion? Is Ray saying that in a donut factory, if a cop walks in, the donuts will start responding physically to the emotions of the cops?
I just thought it was like he meant a cop in a donut shop.
But that doesn't make sense either. Like when a cop walks in, I understand the joke about cops and donuts.
Yeah.
I get that. But a cop in a donut factory is not analogous to the mood slime and how the slime reacts to human emotions.
It was an improv scene, and they kept it in the movie.
I'm like, Ray, your analogies are breaking down on me. The Twinkie worked better in Ghostbusters 1, I thought, as an analogy, too.
You know, one thing I forgot to ask about is, at the very beginning of the film, when the Ghostbusters logo comes up, and it's the animated ghost that says 2, that looks so grainy and crappy on the version of the movie I saw. Why does it look so bad?
I don't know, but I love the logo. The fact that they needed to announce we are, like in the movie itself.
Yeah, it's
that
so
logo
weird.
Becomes their official logo to say we're back.
It's like the theme song exists in the movie, but also their poster that's on the movie poster is in the movie too. I don't understand. It's just
and the ghost is really happy in the logo, as opposed to the one that's sad being captured in the first logo. Now now it's cool. It's almost like the ghosts are happy to be in jail.
Yeah. They're back and they're going to capture me. Yay. Okay, so the Ghostbusters, the boys, they go out to drill a hole in the middle of the street, pretending to be construction workers. And that's where they find a river of slime. I do like the idea of the slime coming to life and how it was like going up towards him.
There's some kind of activity going on with this stuff.
I thought that was good, kind of have a scary kind of factor for a little bit there. It was fun to see maybe Ray in a little bit of jeopardy, kind of get something that like they're in danger a little bit. But it was all about them getting arrested, right? Because one thing that I need to establish that I don't think we've mentioned, that because of the incident from the first movie, they have been stripped of all their Ghostbusters powers. They're not allowed to be Ghostbusters. And in fact, they billed them some insurmountable amount of money that they can't pay, I assume. Or maybe they did pay and lost their business. But they're not allowed to be Ghostbusters.
Well, they were in the first movie. They were front page news, and they saved the world, correct?
Right.
And there were thousands and hundreds of thousands of witnesses to this.
Yeah.
And now 5 years later, it's all forgotten.
Yeah, there's even a part where after Peter comes off his show and he's yelling at his producer, the mayor walks by and goes, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor. And the guy, the assistant guy, is like,
well, that's why I wanted to talk to His Highness. See, we did a little job for the city a while back, and we got stiffed on the bill by some bureaucratic bookworm like yourself.
Kind of like making fun of him. And it's just like, God, he saved New York. Why, give him any respect? But they're just like a joke to everybody.
Yeah, but you know what? That points to a problem, not with Ghostbusters 2, but with Ghostbusters 1.
Mm-hmm.
Because Ghostbusters 1, the original concept was that they weren't going to be celebrities. They were basically going to be working in their, off the grid.
Yeah.
Just saving the world without anyone knowing. And I think Men in Black ripped this off a little bit, but they solved that problem, which is how do you have characters running a business, saving the world, but the world can't know about this, right? So we have to erase their memories.
Yeah, they're secret government organization, and we erase their memory. So they're taken care of, kind of thing.
Yeah, Men in Black solved that problem.
I like that they're kind of like exterminators,
Yeah, and all their work is unsung and that no one appreciates them like we do. But then if you set it in the real New York, then you have all these consequences that then make no sense.
That is funny. It's just kind of like, forget about all that. This is the sequel. Just come on, let's go. Yeah. Let me ask you about the Vigo scene. When it cuts to the museum, we barely know Janosch. When Ray is being pulled up from the slime, they cut to the museum, and without setting the tone or anything, you just see Janosch get zapped. And he's like, oh, and he's like, Vigo is talking to him about bringing him a baby. And when I watched that, it happens so suddenly. There's no subtle building. There's no just kind of set the tone, show the room, show how scary it is, the painting in the background, and then work your way up to it. But instead, it just cuts to him. He's right up to the painting, and he gets zapped like that. And we're like, oh, what the hell's going on here? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I like the speed of that, because what it really gets to for me is Janosch hearing that he will be commanded and then saying,
Command me, Lord!
Yeah, he gives it really fast, doesn't he?
Just get to that. Don't tie things down with setup.
He visits Dana to he's like, hey, how's it going? Because remember, Ray causes a blackout in the entire city of New York. It's all darkness, and he's like, hello, I just was in your neighborhood,
How's the baby?
Oh, he's okay. Yes. He's
was he there for the baby that night, and then he just kind of gives up very easily?
I forgot all that. And you know what? I don't mind. I don't mind forgetting all that. It's I don't care,
There are sequences in this film that I feel like the scene went on much longer and they cut it, or they reshot it and added this to a previous scene, because sometimes things seem disjointed to me. And then cut to them, they're in court. Lewis being their lawyer, the judge is the Hammer. He's like this very unforgiving judge.
I don't want to hear a lot of malarkey about goblins and spooks and demons. We're going to stick to the facts in this case. Leave the ghost stories to the kiddies, understood?
But I love when Lewis says that,
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Okay, so the blackout was a big problem for everybody, okay? I was stuck in an elevator for 2 hours and I had to make the whole time. But I don't blame them, because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
They're like, oh, that went well.
And then Egon says,
Very good, Lewis. Short but pointless.
Yeah, my favorite scene in the entire movie, just when I watch it, because Rick Moranis is such a comedic genius, is the leading the witness scene with Peter.
So you were just trying to help out a friend
Who was frightened?
who was scared of what was happening to her.
No
And
evil
when you're
intent.
scared, what?
There was no evil.
There was no evil intended, no malice.
Objection, Your Honor.
What?
He's leading the witness.
Sustained.
that's Peter leading the attorney.
Yeah. But
And I like the introduction scene where Lewis says,
I got my law degree in night school.
Well, that's fine, Lewis. We got arrested at night.
yeah, I like when the ghosts show up, the Scolari twins, they carry the female lawyer out, and the guys are just like, oh, okay. They're like, no, we can't be bothered with that. I'm sure she's fine, right?
yeah, that was a mess.
That whole scene.
But like I said, though, just get it over with. Like, it's fast, it's cute. I mean, it's fine. And whatever.
I think at this point, we just wanted something to happen that had to do with ghosts, right? I do love when Peter says,
There are some things in this world that go way beyond human understanding. Sometimes shit happens, someone has to deal with it, and who are you going to call?
and everyone's like, yeah!
And did you notice that the court seemed oddly crowded for this case?
Yeah.
Like, the court is packed for this nothing case about three guys making a hole in the ground.
I also thought it was strange that don't most courtrooms have like benches, but they're all like individual chairs just strewn about the place. Is that normal? I don't know. I haven't been to a New York courtroom, but that seemed odd to me. Because when they're fighting the Scolari brothers, they have the scene where the chairs are all popping up. And by the way, they overreact to that. Like, you guys have seen ghosts before, and you're like going, whoa, these chairs are flying everywhere. I would thought, guys, you're overreacting to these chairs. You guys have seen the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Why are these chairs making you guys so startled?
Well, maybe it's been a while for them. They did say it's been, how long since they used that equipment?
Yeah.
So it's been 5 years for them, right?
Yeah.
And as Egon says, the
Power cells have a half-life of 5,000 years.
And then they do the...
Yeah, but I like those scenes they're like sketches. They're like the world of the psychic and that scene, the courthouse scene. They're just like skits that just play so well.
But basically, this whole scene exists so the judge can give them their powers back to be the Ghostbusters, and to cue, I'm just gonna say it, a horrible song by Run DMC.
Ghostbusters.
And we get a montage sequence where they're back in business, baby. I love that Louis Tully was I guess he was their accountant. He manages their finances.
I think he and Janine are such a cute couple when they're like, making out, and then when he's all nervous and she's all...
I like a child myself. Would you?
Tonight?
Yeah, and she says, "Oh, you're so good with kids," and he says,
Thanks, I practiced on my hamster.
Yes, that was a great line.
And I think he and Janine, can I get you on board with this, Jason? They are better than their counterparts in Ghostbusters 1.
I thought Lewis had a lot better stuff to do in the first Ghostbusters. Remember that he's having the party where he's talking about like each of his guests. He's like, hey, they saved so-and-so and their tax return and all that, and he's talking about all the food, and he had a lot of great scenes.
But his character in Ghostbusters 1 was such a one note, the nerd who can't get anything going with the girl, and then at the end he gets the girl, but only through divine intervention.
Remember, he kind of had a thing for Dana in the first film. I thought it would have been funny when Dana shows up and he's making out with Janine. Like, he would have been like, oh, Dana, I don't mean to, I'm kind of interested in her. I don't want to hurt your feelings or anything. Like, he's kind of oblivious, like she might be interested in him some way. I don't know.
But I do like Janine's whole performance. Like Annie Potts. I love her whole performance in that scene because she just looks totally debauched.
Yeah. Now, it cuts to the museum and we see, Dana, she's no longer with the symphony, right? She's now cleaning paintings. And the Vigo painting, I believe, winks at her with a horrible effect. Should I say all the Vigo painting effects early on in the movie are pretty bad?
Yes.
But I do like when Peter shows up and Janos immediately does not like him.
You're not your own business, I hope.
Well, it's top secret. Say, Johnny, you gotta go again, too.
No, actually, I'm preparing this portrait for the new romantic exhibition. Yes, this is Prince Vigo, the roller quartet in Moldavia.
Bit of a sissy, isn't he?
He was a very powerful magician, Dr. Rinkman.
Janos's accent.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not really doing an accent in that you can say, oh, he's doing this accent or that accent.
Right.
He's simply making up an accent. So he will replace, in that scene, he replaces all the V's with R's.
He was a very powerful magician, Dr. Rinkman.
But sometimes Janos, his W's are V's. So he'll say,
Johnny, where in the hell are you from, anyway?
The Upper West Side.
W's are V's, and then his V's are R's?
Yeah. They gave Peter McNichol free reign with Janos to do whatever he wanted.
Which means this is a character who is so pretentious that he invents his own accent that he makes up as he goes in order to sound impressive and cultured to total strangers.
Would that have been a great reveal at the end after they hose him down with the positive slime for him to just talk normal? And they're just like, okay. And we could have not explained anything and it just been like, what the hell? And so we know when we rewatch the movie that he's putting on a fake accent the entire movie. And with no explanation. That would have made it more interesting.
But maybe it's also even funnier that he's done it for so long that he just forgot his normal voice.
So some people really like Janos, because I gotta say, I never reacted well to Janos. I think it would have been okay if Ivan Reitman said, hey, dial back with the accent a little, But there's this strange scene. Yeah. Ray stares at the painting and he looks like he's possessed or something.
Hey. Huh? Hey, you finished?
Yeah, I'm finished here.
Are you all right?
What?
I mean, you're not coming down with something.
And he is, but that whole subplot was cut out of the movie. There's more to that. Do you remember in the montage earlier when Peter, Bill Murray, he's kind of like looking weird, like at the front of the Ecto-1, and he kind of looks back at Egon? He kind of has a befuddled look on his face for no reason.
Oh.
In that scene, Ray was driving the Ecto-1 and he was driving crazy in New York and he was going to crash a car and kill all of them until Winston punches him in the face and knocks it out of him. And they cut that out of the movie. So now he just kind of is like, hey, are you okay? And he's like, huh? Oh, yeah, I'm fine. And that's it.
Okay. There seemed to be more to that than what was there, but I didn't know there was a whole sequence.
I think I picture them in the editing room like, this film comes out like in 4 weeks, guys. Come on, we gotta make something out of this stuff.
I mean, was it Aykroyd's performance? By the way, he would be nominated for an Academy Award that year for Driving Miss Daisy.
That's crazy.
And so was it his performance? That Dan Aykroyd can't sell possession.
Yeah, it's kind of like a boom kind of a look.
And by the way, I like Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd isn't he someone who you think could never really be a star, but is a great presence? Like he's someone who never really had a persona. He always was able to just slip into other roles.
Right.
And you see him in this movie sort of enacting things, like when he's acting like he's working for the power company, and he puts on this really heavy New York accent.
Hey, take it easy. He's been working overtime. I tell you why we're here. We're here because some diaper bag downtown's being a jerk. I'm making us working on Friday night. Am I right, Peter?
And then they should be doing more with him being possessed and being like having to put on different personas, because that's what we like about Dan Aykroyd. Because he was, when he's trying to be the hero, like before Ghostbusters 2, he was in like Spies Like Us.
Honestly, what it felt like to me is they're improvising so much on the set that Dan Aykroyd's standing looking at the painting and goes, guys, what if Ray gets possessed here? And they're like, okay, well, let's try it. And he's like, action. He's like, oh. And they're like, cut. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. What do we do with that? I don't know. We'll figure it out later. Do you feel like this film is piecemeal? Like they had to work they had to kind of get it coherent from all the crazy takes and different thing? It does hold together. It has, the whole thing's building up to Vigo at the end with the slime, but we haven't quite gotten there yet.
Yeah, it should have been all about the slime, this movie, because that actually is thematic material. This movie's about New York. It's not just set in New York like the first one.
Yeah,
it's about New York.
Yeah, because how did the slime correlate with bringing the Vigo painting out of the basement?
Yes. How is the slime even connected? There's just a river of slime.
Yeah, I don't know. We got the river of slime.
So it's sort of like runoff, right? Isn't that technically what it is? It's runoff from...
Yeah, I don't know where it's coming from, but it's all going towards the museum that we'll figure out later.
But towards the museum. Shouldn't it be going away from the museum? Anyway.
So, I do like this scene. After the museum, Peter, there's a scene where he's with Oscar, and he's like,
"You're short, your belly button sticks out too far, and you're a terrible burden on your poor mother."
It's a cute scene, but he says
it's really charming.
He asked Dana out, and he says, "I've got Janine to babysit." And I like how she has the line about, "Don't use any of your cheap moves on me."
Okay, but after dinner, don't put any of those old cheap moves on me. Okay?
No.
It's different.
I have all new cheap moves.
Isn't it interesting to see Peter Venkman's apartment?
Yeah, he's a slob.
Because in the first movie, we never saw where these guys lived, because they lived in the firehouse, right? That's where they lived. So you're missing a whole thing that could characterize these guys by showing them where they live. That's why I so much prefer seeing them as separate people doing their own thing. And so you get to spend a lot of time in Peter Venkman's home. And I'm scanning that room for all these weird little, like he's got like a birdhouse. He's got these like paintings on the wall. He's got these magazine covers and USA Today newspaper covers of himself on them. He has this old computer with a turtle on top of it.
Yeah.
And Peter Venkman's got beer bottles on his coffee table. He doesn't even sleep in his bed. He's
it looks like there's newspapers stacked up in the corner or something.
Yeah, no, it's like he's a hoarder or something.
And what's interesting in this, between him asking Dana to go out with him and them getting ready to go out and them actually standing out on the street and then them being in the restaurant, we have the scene in the dark room developing the pictures of Vigo, where they see that he looks crazy evil, and that in one of the photos you see the river of slime. Winston saves them. Then we cut to, actually right before that, I think Janine and Lewis left, and she's like, well, I have to babysit, and he goes with her. So then after that scene, they go to visit the river of slime. And that's where we get the scene that I always remember, scaring the crap out of a little kid on the same row as me, with the severed heads.
Okay, I'm out of here.
He wasn't sitting in his chair. He was standing up, like kind of like hugging the chair in front of him, watching it. And when that scene came up, he turned around and went, "Mama!" and like was crying in her arms. And I was like, way to go, Ghostbusters. You just scared the crap out of that kid. Now, Winston gets sucked into the river of slime and Egon and Ray jump in. And I do like the scene where they come out. I thought this scene could have gone on longer, where Winston and Ray want to fight, but they should have been like trying to kill each other. And it would have been a really dark scene. And that's when Egon breaks it up. It's not, no, guys, this movie's in a hurry, I think.
Ivan Reitman, the director, needed another producer to say, shouldn't you set this up a little more? Shouldn't you have a few more shots of this?
There's no setup to any scenes in this movie. It just is happening. And guys, if you're not following, you're just gonna have to watch the movie again. I think that's the way it is.
Yeah, and it also doesn't pay off later, because the idea is the slime that's covering the museum at the end, you figure, well, that's going to make everybody kind of like a Kingsman scenario where everyone just is triggered into homicidal lunacy, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. No one else is slimed in this movie.
They do kind of boo them when they can't do anything with it, with their proton packs. Like, boo, you guys suck. I do actually like the Dana and Peter scene in the restaurant where she's complimenting him and she's like,
the most charming, kindest.
Oh, it's me.
It's you. And most unusual man I've ever broken up with.
But again, referring to a guy we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know this kind man she's talking about.
And they're about to kiss when the boys show up. They're covered in slime, and he flings some on a lady.
Museum. Get out of the museum!
Got all over me.
That lady, you know who that was?
Who?
That's Dawn Steele, who is the head of Columbia Pictures. She greenlit this movie.
Yeah.
And she gets the cameo as Slimed Lady.
What's funny is I read about the previous head of the studio before her had no interest in greenlighting Ghostbusters 2. He was more into like award-winning movies.
Mm. Yeah, so that's David Putnam. It's not that he didn't want to do Ghostbusters 2. He just didn't want to do it the way Bill Murray wanted to do it. You know?
I gotta just say that when they leave the restaurant, they tell them that the slime is leading right towards the museum. So they're all going to go talk to the mayor. Cue up some Bobby Brown, is what I'm saying here. We get to hear this song.
On Our Own?
Yes. On Our Own. And we even get a Bobby Brown cameo. He wants one of those proton packs for his little brother or his nephew or something.
Come right this way. Hey, you guys got another one of those proton packs? My kid brother really wants one.
The proton pack is not a toy.
I guess that's right.
Well, okay, picture Tim Burton's Batman, and there's a montage scene with a Prince song, and Batman's walking, and Prince is like, hey, could I get a little batarang for my nephew? And he's like, these aren't toys. The audience would have been like, what? Why is Prince in this scene during Bat Dance in the movie? No.
But, that song, On Our Own, I'm going to say this, Jason. I'd rather hear that song one more time than to hear the Ray Parker Jr. Ghostbusters one more time. And there's something about the freshness of it that makes it something you want to hear more of.
It's not a bad song, I'll say that. It's catchy. The Ghostbusters song by Ray Parker Jr. sucks. It's not a good song. It's not a work of art in any way. People like it because they enjoy the movie. Other than that, if Ghostbusters the song existed without the movie, people go, what the hell is this? It's not a good song.
And it's the song that got jammed down our throats because that's really what made the movie a hit, the first movie, the song.
Well, back in the movie, they go to visit the mayor, and we get the funny line about...
Lately, do you know how weird it is out there? We've taken our own head count. There seem to be 3 million completely miserable assholes living in the tri-state area.
Oh, please.
I beg your pardon, 3,000,001.
Hey.
He's like, hey. But, of course, the mayor doesn't believe them, and they threaten to go to the press, and this guy, Hardemeyer, I believe is his name, he has them committed. Meanwhile, Dana has no idea that happened. She's back at the apartment with Louis and Janine. Then cut to the museum, and we have Janosch talking to Vigo, and he says, by the way, you now see his floating head in the painting where he's like, bring me the boy. I need a baby. And he's like, well, what about Dana? Could she be mine? And he's like,
so be it.
Yes! Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
So next, cut to the scene where Oscar has wandered out onto the ledge. And why is Janos now a ghost? Is that even Janos? Did his spirit,
in a wig, in a bad wig?
Did his spirit leave his body? Because he comes and his arm stretches out. He takes the baby, and Lewis says it was a ghost. A ghost took him, and Dana goes, "No, that was Janos." And it's like that. No, that was a ghost of Janos. What the hell's going on? It just seemed kind of like what happened there.
I know. See, to me, that's sort of like nitpicking a little bit. Like,
it's not important, really, but would it have killed Ivan Reitman to see Janos, after he says, yes, you can have the woman, he collapses on the ground and you see his spirit form rise out of his body and he floats up through the ceiling? We still would have been like, what the F? But then when he shows up at the building like that, we'd be like, oh, okay. Janine and Lewis are like, we gotta find the boys. And she runs off to the museum where she's immediately taken captive. Now that Dana is captured at the museum with Oscar, all hell seeps up through the cracks. And I don't know if you've heard me before talk about on the show this one part that drives me nuts in the movie. And that's they reuse the same shot twice. And you can't tell me I'm wrong at this. I've looked at it. The Titanic shows up. And the Titanic has arrived. And they show the people walking out, the ghosts. And Cheech Marin's like, huh? With another guy? Later on, when they're in the Statue of Liberty walking across the harbor,
yeah,
they show Cheech Marin do that same scene from earlier in the movie. They just reused the scene. You can't tell me that's a different take.
Wait,
it's the same.
Are you saying that was just the same angle, different take, or same exact shot?
Same exact shot. Like editing room magic. They're like, hey, just grab me that scene over there. Okay, here we go. Oh, perfect. Magic. Mwah! Works perfectly. They tried to trick it up a little bit. It's zoomed in a little bit, but I swear it's the same shot. Did you notice that?
I did not notice that. I did not. And you know what? Doesn't put a dent in this movie as far as I'm concerned. And the Titanic, I just like how they just throw that away in 2 shots.
Well, better late than never.
A lot of throwaways. I think in this movie, I think in Ghostbusters 2, the big gags, most of them don't work.
Yeah.
But all the little gags work. I would say work much better than in Ghostbusters 1.
Here's what makes no sense about the Titanic arriving. The slime is in New York. Where is the Titanic sunk at? Why did the Titanic rise and arrive? Why did the slime bring the Titanic back? That makes no sense to me. But whatever.
But I thought the image of the Titanic was extraordinarily historically accurate. The giant hole, and it was exactly there, right?
I do like the ghosts with their bags. Like, finally, we've arrived. They've got their ghost luggage.
I think when James Cameron was making The Abyss, when he saw Ghostbusters 2, he said, "Damn it, damn it! Now I'm going to make my own movie."
Okay, there's a glowing light in the sky for some reason. I thought maybe because they had it in the first film, they need it in the second film. When they're like, Mr. Mayor, everybody look! And there's a glowing light in the sky.
Have you ever seen anything like that?
They did see something like that before, 5 years ago.
Yeah. I like when Janos tries to sweet-talk Dana.
There are many perks in being the mother of a living god. I'm sure we could get a magnificent apartment, car, free parking.
I like that he sells her on this life of Vigo taking over her baby as they could get some free parking in New York. That's like pretty priceless, right? And I thought they could have played that up a little bit more, but they're in a hurry. A cut. Okay, we got it. Okay. They can't get through the Jell-O mold, and everyone boos them. And they need positive energy to break through. They need something that everyone can rally around.
There gotta be a few sparks of sweet humanity left in this burned-out burg. We just have to figure out a way to mobilize it.
He's right. We need something that everyone in this town can get behind. We need...
Okay, I'll say this about the Statue of Liberty part. I think the effects of walking through New York actually look decent. The Nintendo controller, I think, is funny. Just for, I think at the time when I saw it, I was like, oh, it's cool they're using a Nintendo controller. The fighting controller, you'd play Street Fighter or something.
And a Sony Walkman.
Yes, of course. Got to have Sony Columbia, right?
So that would happen, and that would happen about 4 months later. The deal.
Yeah. Wow, that's funny.
So would you call that predictive product placement?
Yeah, it's kind of like when you go back and watch. There was an episode of The Muppet Show where Mark Hamill hosted it, and it ends with them singing "When You Wish Upon a Star" at the end. Like the entire cast of Muppets and Mark Hamill, and you just kind of go, "Whoa!" Like Disney was like, "I shall own you all one day." That's kind of the feeling you get from watching that. So it's kind of like that, right?
Yeah, and the cassette player that was in the birthday party scene was also a Sony cassette player.
That's right. It's kind of like now in modern day Sony movies, everyone has a Sony phone. And no one has a Sony phone in real life, anywhere. I've never seen anyone with a Sony phone.
Or a Vio laptop, which no longer exists.
Yeah. Okay, so the Statue of Liberty part, good or bad?
Conceptually could have been better because, like you say, it was supposed to be about something good, something positive, something that people would get behind.
Also, they need something giant to rival the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man of the first film.
However, as good as the effects are, if I was on a street corner in New York and a giant statue starts walking down towards me,
you run in terror?
I don't feel positive emotions.
Yes. They're even saying, "Come on, everybody, higher and higher." I'm like, can they hear you? Do they know what... Did they know your plan, Ghostbusters? Like, "Hey guys, we're gonna go get the Statue of Liberty. We'll be right back. Everyone stay positive." I understand what you mean. This is the climax of the film, and they cut to Louis Tully back at the firehouse suiting up to be a Ghostbuster. It almost felt like the movie was like, "Oh wait, shouldn't we have Louis doing something? He's one of the characters in the movie."
And you know what? The great moment, I think this is a great moment, when Louis is with Janine and he's all suited up and he's about to go. And she's hanging on to him like, "You're my hero." And then he says to her,
I was born to wear this stuff.
and then he grabs her and kisses her like Ash in Army of Darkness. He could be this whole more interesting part of the movie.
But Louis does get to catch a bus with Slimer.
Oh, things I wish never happened. Just erase that. Just erase it. That didn't happen, Jason.
So he didn't get picked up in a bus by Slimer. But I will say this, and this is a weakness in Ghostbusters 1. The climactic battles in these films are terrible. They don't work. There's no sense of danger except to have a baby in peril, right? And the fights are over so quickly. And the movie ends so quickly, doesn't it? Did you ever feel threatened by Vigo at all?
Not when the Ghostbusters are taunting him so freely. Like even Ray. I mean, you figure, okay, Venkman, he might be showing some nerve by saying, "Oh, Vigo."
If you had brain one in that huge melon on top of your neck, you would be living the sweet life out in Southern California's beautiful San Fernando Valley.
Like,
that was an improv scene, wasn't it?
But not only that, but Ray says to him,
"Hold it right there, deadhead! You want a baby? Go ahead and knock up some willing hellhound."
Yeah.
They're just such brats, the Ghostbusters. They're not intimidated at all.
The Ghostbusters, the only reason they win this battle is because the people outside started singing.
Sorry, folks, excuse me.
But it was like everyone saw Scrooged and thought, that movie didn't do so well. Why don't we repeat the end of that movie where everyone is singing like a Christmas song?
Yeah. When Louis shows up and he proton packs, I don't know what you call it, he shoots the Jello mold and it lifts up as they defeat Vigo, and they're all like, "Hey man, good job," and he's like, "Thanks." I like that scene because they gave Louis this kind of heroic moment, even though he really didn't do anything there. He just thinks he did. Also, when Vigo goes back in the painting and his face starts morphing and stuff, that's like the first time in the movie they're like, "Hey, do you want to try some of these newfangled CGI effects or in other movies?"
Yeah, it was like that movie. What was that terrible film? RoboCop 2.
Oh, yeah. And the little LCD screen is like Kane's digitized face. I remember that. I just have one question for you. This is the whole reason I wanted to do this show. Who painted the painting of the Ghostbusters at the end? Who was responsible for the painting? Did the slime do it?
Yeah, who painted that? It's a pan-dimensional canvas.
They're heroes again. They save the day. Oscar's safe. He was only possessed for a few seconds by Vigo's face, right? Why is the Statue of Liberty now knocked over? I ask myself that every time I see the movie. It was standing up over the museum. What knocked it over?
You know what's so funny about that shot, though? I don't know if they were doing a callback to Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
But just seeing it there, like, why do we even have to see it there? It's a pile of rubble.
Why does that have to be in the shot? And also, it makes me think something I don't want to think, and which is, how did they get it back? Did they go back in, spray it down, play the music again, and walk back? Or did they have helicopters lifted on a big crane with wires? Because during the end credits, you see that Statue of Liberty is back in place.
Right, the final shot, the very New York-y shot.
Do you know what the worst part of the ending is? We get the Ghostbusters theme for a second, but then they cue up the Run DMC song again. Why do we have to hear that song again? Dig it. What have we learned today?
Well, look, I think this is a special sequel. With Ghostbusters 2, I feel like it's better than the original because of the people who are on the screen. I just want to watch these people, and they seem to be able to do more, to be more. I feel like the characters are a little more vivid, a little more alive. And in Ghostbusters 1, I feel like there's so much setup. There's so much, and we're trying to make things so normal seeming. And for a while, there's good contrast between the normal world and what's going on with the ghosts. But then after a while, it just goes out of control, and it just doesn't make sense. But with Ghostbusters 2, I feel like they just started with the premise of nothing makes sense. We're just going to do what we want. And what we see is what they wanted to do, more than what we saw in the first one. And I'd just rather watch that than watch something like Ghostbusters 1, which is, I know it's a classic, and it is more important. But it is a bit of a chore, to sit through it.
That's fair. And I got to say this because, I've said some mean things about Ghostbusters 2 in the past. But having watched it recently again, kind of with a very, just a watchful eye in a way where I want to pick out things, what's not working for me or what is. I see some things that I like in the film. And, I can't blame the effects of the time. Because it's 1989, ILM, they did some good work, but I know they were rushed. This was supposed to come out 2 weeks before Batman. It came out a week before Batman because they pushed the date. Just thinking of it from a filmmaking point of view and how much pressure they were under, because the Ghostbusters was a huge hit for them. They made this comedy movie with some comedy guys about guys who catch ghosts, and they had a blockbuster on their hands all of a sudden, right? So this was like a huge follow-up. The fact that they got something interesting in some way, I think the most interesting thing about this film is the setup they gave their characters. I think the Vigo stuff isn't that interesting, though. I guess I just keep thinking of what ifs, how could this be better? And I guess you could do that with any film. But I gotta say this, I hate the film less than I did.
You hate it less? I will take that. I will take that. I feel victorious.
Yes.
I have triumphed over a modicum of hate.
I still don't like Janos.